did my undergrad in critical studies and production, and then I went to grad school for screenwriting. And I think that was my biggest learning experience because I didn't know I could write. I always admired good writing. I liked reading, but moving back and forth from Argentina to LA and then from LA back to Argentina, my language level wasn't the best, and I struggled in my writing classes. Mostly not with creativity, but with language, semantics and spelling and stuff like that. So I never was the best student in writing, and my teachers weren't very encouraging, of my writing either. So so I just didn't feel I was a writer because of my syntaxes and my spelling. And it was when I was an undergrad at USC, I took this class. It was a leadership course. It wasn't a film course. It was a course where the president of the university and the head of the business school, it was Warren Bennis was the head of the business school who wrote many business books, and it was President Sample at that time at USC. And they were doing this course where they would take two people from each school, from each different school, the top grades, and invite them to take this class. And I had great grades. So they invited me from the film school to take that leadership course. And one day, Warren Bennis walks up to me and says, next class, we're going to have Robert Zemeckis here. And I know you love Back to the Future. Why don't you write him a letter, and tell him, how you feel about him. So I did. I wrote him a letter. I really did admire Robert Zemeckis. I love, Forrest Gump and Castaway and Back to the Future is my favorite film. So I wrote him a letter. Warren Bennis introduced us. I gave him the letter. And when I left class that day, my phone rang at home, and it was his secretary asking if I wanted to go to lunch with him in the Universal Studios lot where he had an office there. And so I said, my schedule has just opened up. I have a spot. I went to lunch with him, and he asked me, okay, Damian, what do you want to do? And at that point, I don't know if it was the smartest answer or not, but I said, I want to be you. And he said, well, if you want to be me, you can't work for me. And I said, why? He says, unfortunately, he says, the people that work for me, I don't see him that way. I'll always see him like my assistant or a secretary, but I won't see him as a director. It's very hard for me to see him as a director. He said, I'll tell you how I did it. And then if that helps, great, and because I knew I wanted to be a director since I was 5 years old, but I didn't know how to get started. Even after I did all my undergrad in production, I was like, okay, now what? I know how to make a movie, but who's going to ever give me, a chance to do something? Who's going to give me money, millions of dollars to go spend? Who's going to trust me? Who's with their story? I just couldn't figure it out. And he said that when he was a student at USC, Robert Zemeckis, him and his roommate, also Bob, who was his co-writer, they finished school, they didn't know what to do, and it was kind of the end of the Western TV series, where they used to have a lot of Western TV shows, and they were all getting canceled because it was like a new generation. Nobody was watching those anymore. And they would write crazy ideas for these shows and just mail them out to the producers at Universal. And they were so desperate that they actually got meetings at Universal to pitch their crazy ideas for these Western shows. And in one of those trips to the Universal Studios lot, when they were pitching shows, they run into Steven Spielberg, who was like an up and coming director. He had done one or two things, and they knew about him, and they had some friends in common from USC. So Robert Zemeckis walked up to him and said, Mr. Spielberg, I love your movies. I admire you so much. I want to be a director too. I have this short film that I made, and he gave him a VHS of a movie he made. And Spielberg watched the short film Robert Zemeckis made and called him. He said, I liked your short film. What else do you have? And Robert Zemeckis says, well, I'm working on the script called Back to the Future.
Wow.
And he sent them the script. Spielberg liked it. It wasn't what we know today. It was a different type of script. And he worked on it. And he did other things before that, but that's how he got his shot through writing. He said, you can get it. You can make music videos. You can make commercials. You can make short films. But when you're making short films or commercials or music videos, you're still competing for the same job with people who've already done feature films. So why are they going to give you the opportunity when they can hire somebody who's already done feature films? He says, but if you have a story, you have a script that's so good, and the only way they're going to get that script made is if you direct it, then maybe they'll give you a shot. He says, if you have something that's so great, and the only way I can do it is if you direct it, he says, maybe I'll give you a shot to direct. So he says, go and write something great. And he says, and the satisfaction will be double because not only will you get a chance to direct, but you'll get a chance to tell the story that you wrote. He says, so it's a great satisfaction, and it's the best way in my opinion. That's what he said. I didn't know at that point if I could write, if I was a writer. I was insecure, but I started just writing for myself, just for fun. And I applied for grad school because, again, I was lost after undergrad. I didn't know what to do. I applied to AFI for directing, and I applied to USC for screenwriting because I said, I don't want to go back to USC for directing because they took a lot of the grad school classes. I know what it is. I'm not going to learn anything there. I said, if I go to AFI, it might be a different experience, or maybe they'll accept me in this writing program and I'll try that out. And so I got into the writing program at USC. And again, at the beginning, I didn't know if I could write, but turns out in the first couple of weeks, I wrote my first screenplay. And then I was just a machine. I was just cranking them out really quick. It just came to me really quick and very natural. And I never thought I could do it, but the format worked for me. I don't know if I could write a novel. I don't know if I could write a short story. I don't know if I could write a play, but somehow writing movies comes very natural to me.